I'm going to be the contrarian here because I just spent 8 years working mostly not within the space community, but working broadly with taxpayers and members of Congress and my bosses and trying to convince. And I worked for one senator who was extremely supportive of space exploration and another who was not. And he said to me, he's like, Anne, there are a lot of ways you can explore. This is but one of them. And so I think the challenge, I don't actually agree that there's been a huge sea change. I think that we're at a place where there's relative agreement on the path forward, but I think it is tenuous at best. And I think that constant vigilance of educating and making some of the points that we've made here earlier with why you do this with economic investment and learning more about Earth by looking outward, which is also, if you saw any of the hearings this past week, is risky. Because right now, anything that has to do with Earth science, climate, is considered a dirty word, and they're trying to use that as a breaking point at NASA to reallocate the Earth science funding and put it towards exploration. Well, using this message as we need to study planets to learn more about Earth is risky because you're going to run up against this. Are you saying climate change is real? So I think that there are a lot of people. Why does the single mother of two in rural Indiana care about this? And I haven't heard anything here yet that suggests that she would. And so I think that we need to keep in mind, not preaching. I just tell people come talk to me in the Senate, and they're talking like, we need funding for this. I'm like, I'm with you. Go make some new friends. And so talk to those members who you don't usually go to and who aren't historically supporters of space and convince them that this is worth doing. And so we had in the 2010 NASA authorization, we had a provision that required the National Research Council to do a study about human spaceflight and is this valuable? And I gotta tell you, people were extremely nervous about this particular study, and I got so many calls from all sectors of the space community asking me to pull the plug on this direction in the authorization. And I said, look, here's what we're trying to figure out. We're putting together a bunch of smart people who aren't the usual suspects on space to actually have this conversation. And at the end of this study with the National Research Council, will they think this is worthwhile? And I gotta tell you, it was touch and go there for the year they were doing the study. But at the end of the day, this group of people came out publicly and said that this is worth doing. And these are, again, not the usual suspects on space. And they sat through lots of briefings from probably many of you in the room and NASA and the companies and everything. And so I think that looking at what convinced them and the value proposition in that particular report is helpful in informing how you message this more broadly. Because I think that again, it's not that people are against it, but it's kind of oh, look, that's how nice, they're trying to get to Mars. And it's so far off that it's just hard who's gonna oppose? It's not like we're going tomorrow, so it gives them times like, oh, well, wish them luck, hope for the best. But I think that it's constant vigilance again in branching out and convincing new members and broadening the taxpayer support. And I think that when you actually go down on the number of value propositions you're trying to sell, you lose some of your audience. And so when I was in the Senate, I would go to, depending on the member, what was important to them, I'd say, I can sell NASA to anybody. There's so many things to like about it, whether you like the robotic, the education, the aero R&D. And then we also run into the problem of, Artemis, you mentioned, now that we have station built, what do? Science. But messaging basic research is really hard to do. And so we found this with Curiosity as well. We land this rover, it's really fantastic. We had our 7 minutes of terror. And I was at the Von Braun Symposium a few years ago, and a lot of our bosses in the room were on the panel, and they said, well, now what's next? And I raised my hand and I said, with all due respect, if we have to land something the size of Curiosity on a planet on an annual basis to keep people's support, we have a problem. So we need to actually figure out how to message the science that comes from all of these, whether it's Station or Curiosity or whatever, and getting back to the point that Emily made again about celebrating the small successes along the way to keep the support for the long term.